Hello everyone, and welcome to our exploration of 20th century music. Now you might be thinking, the 20th century, isn't that like ancient history? Well, in the grand scheme of things, maybe not so ancient, but in the world of music, the 20th century was a period of seismic shifts, a real earthquake shaking up the very foundations of how music was written and heard. The 20th century was a time of great upheaval in general, including in music. Just think about it. 2 world wars, incredible technological advancements, and a whole new way of looking at the world. All of this turmoil and change couldn't help but spill over into the arts, and music was no exception. Composers were no longer content with the old rules and traditions. They were searching for new ways to express themselves, to capture the complexities and anxieties of the modern age. So, get ready to dive into a world of isms, impressionism, serialism, and many more. These isms weren't just fancy labels. They represented radical new approaches to melody, harmony, rhythm, and even the very definition of music itself. Let's explore how this upheaval affected developments in musical styles and genres. Let's begin our journey with Impressionism, a movement that blossomed in the late 19th and early 20th centuries. Now, you might associate Impressionism with paintings, Monet's water lilies, Degas' dancers, Renoir's shimmering light, and you'd be absolutely right. But just like those painters broke free from traditional techniques, Impressionist composers sought to capture fleeting moments and subjective experiences through sound. Imagine yourself strolling through a misty forest, sunlight dappling through the leaves, the air thick with the scent of damp earth. That's the kind of atmosphere Impressionist composers wanted to create with their music. They weren't interested in telling grand stories or conveying dramatic emotions. Instead, they focused on evoking moods and sensations. One of the giants of Impressionism was the French composer Claude Debussy. Think of him as the Claude Monet of music. His music shimmers and flows like sunlight on water. It's full of these gorgeous, hazy harmonies and these melodies that seem to drift in and out of focus, just like those fleeting moments that the Impressionist painters tried to capture on canvas. And speaking of capturing moments, one of Debussy's most famous pieces is called Clair de Lune, which means moonlight in French. Close your eyes and listen to how Debussy uses these delicate shimmering chords to evoke the moon's soft, ethereal glow. Notice how the music seems to float and drift, just like moonlight itself? That's Debussy's magic. His ability to transport us to another world through sound. He doesn't hit us over the head with big dramatic melodies. Instead, he draws us in with these subtle shifts in harmony and these delicate, almost whispered phrases. And just like the Impressionist painters used a whole spectrum of colors, Debussy and his fellow Impressionists explored a wider palette of sounds. They experimented with scales and harmonies that were considered exotic at the time, drawing inspiration from music of other cultures, like the gamelan music of Indonesia. So, Impressionism was all about capturing those fleeting sensory experiences, the play of light, the whisper of the wind, the fragrance of a flower. It was a revolution in sound, a way of hearing the world anew. Now, let's shift gears and explore a musical movement that emerged in the early 20th century, serialism. If Impressionism was all about atmosphere and fluidity, serialism was its more structured, even mathematical cousin. Imagine a composer saying, "Enough of this emotional vagueness. I want order, I want logic, I want a system." That's the kind of spirit that drove serialism. One of the pioneers of serialism was the Austrian composer Arnold Schoenberg. He was a real revolutionary, a true original. Schoenberg believed that the old rules of harmony, the rules that had governed Western music for centuries, were tired and outdated. He felt like they were holding music back, preventing it from expressing the complexities of the modern world. So Schoenberg came up with a radical new system called the 12-tone technique. Now, don't worry, I'm not going to bombard you with a lot of technical jargon, but basically Schoenberg's idea was this. Instead of relying on the old system of major and minor scales, which always gravitated towards a central tonic, he decided to use all 12 notes of the chromatic scale. All the notes on the piano, black and white, with equal importance. Imagine you have 12 different colored marbles. In traditional music, some marbles, certain notes, were considered more important than others. But Schoenberg said, no way, all 12 marbles are equal. He created a system where you had to use all 12 notes in a specific order or row before you could repeat any of them. This might sound incredibly complicated, and to be honest, it is. But Schoenberg wasn't afraid of complexity. He believed that music should reflect the complexities of life itself, and his 12-tone technique allowed him to create music that was completely new and unheard of. One of Schoenberg's most famous 12-tone pieces is his Pierrot Lunaire. This piece is a cycle of songs based on poems by Albert Giraud, and it's full of strange, unsettling beauty. The music is full of these angular melodies, these dissonant harmonies that kind of clash and rub against each other. Now, I'll be honest with you, serialism is not the easiest music to listen to. It can be challenging, even a little jarring at times, but that's the point. Schoenberg wanted to shake things up, to make us hear music in a whole new way. So there you have it, serialism, a radical experiment in musical order and organization, a bold attempt to create a new musical language for the 20th century. These two isms, Impressionism and Serialism, showcase the diverse and revolutionary changes in music during the 20th century. From the shimmering soundscapes of Debussy to the structured world of Schoenberg, we've seen how composers grappled with the changing times, searching for new ways to express the complexities of the modern world. But these are just two examples in a vast and fascinating landscape of 20th century music. We haven't even touched upon jazz, blues, the rise of popular music, and so much more. So keep your ears open and stay curious. The world of music is full of surprises, waiting to be discovered. Stay tuned for more explorations into the fascinating world of music history.